All right, everybody. I think everybody at this point has entered our room, so we can go ahead and get started on our stews, the first of a three-part series for our stews, soups, and sweets. I want to welcome everyone. We have a really great group of participants, and they are going to talk us through three delicious stews that are sure to be hitting the home run as far as the seasonality of them and the nutrition of them. I'm Bernie Wiesen. I'm with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Rensselaer County, and I am the Executive Director. I'm happy to say that we may be joined by a few others that will come on in. I'll keep an eye on our waiting room, but I'm going to go ahead and let our other presenters introduce themselves.
I'll get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramdene, and I am doing well as a local food writer. I own a creative studio in Albany called Studio Ali Bay, where we work on recipe development, we work on storytelling around food, and we have a big love of vegetables. And today I'm going to be making my lemon sunshine curry with you all.
Great. Thanks, Ollie.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Jean O'Toole. I'm the Executive Director of the New York Beef Council, and I have a couple of stews that are waiting for you. So I'm excited to move forward and kind of show you that 101 of stewing, and then we'll hit the kitchen real quick and you can see what I created. So I'm ready to go when you are, Bernie.
Okay. So Jean, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
All right, well, I'm going to share my screen here and do a quick stewing 101, because oftentimes people don't know what it is or what multiple things they can do with it. So I'm just going to kick it off and we're going to have a little fun with it. So let me get to my screen here. Like I mentioned, we are the New York Beef Council. We are so connected: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and YouTube. So check it all out. And join us in our website, nybeef.org. So there's a little plug for that social aspect. And of course, we know beef. We are all about beef in New York State, that promotion and education of not only our consumers, producers, as well as to everything there is to know. But today we're going to be talking about stewing beef cuts and cooking methods. Woohoo! And it smells so good in the Beef Council. So to start out, one of the prime areas and the meats that we use for stewing is from the chuck. As you see right here, it comes from the shoulder of the animal. It's usually a tough but well-marbled piece of meat because it's moving that 1,400-pound steer all over the pastures there. And one of the most popular recognizable cuts that we often use is this blade chuck roast, sometimes referred to as the beef pot roast, the chuck arm pot roast, the chuck pot roast, the shoulder pot roast, and the chuck 7-bone pot roast. Yes, they're all there. You can kind of find them in retail. Sometimes retail masks it as something different. So just go to your butcher and say, where's the chuck roast? But you can see again where it comes from and the relative nutrition of this. If you go to beefitswhatsfordinner.com, you are going to see this, and you can Google chuck and it'll show you all those cuts. You see where it's coming from as well as what that cooking method is. So it's a really cool website to go to, and that's beefitswhatsfordinner.com. Now, as I mentioned, the chuck has lots and lots of cuts and lots of muscles that are definitely able to pressure cook or use the slow cooker, braise, and I did that today. I used the slow cooker and I use a braising cast iron, or that stewing, which is all encompassing of using the braiser or using that Dutch oven or what have you, that it's a slow and moist cooking for sure. And as I mentioned, that moist heat. So it's simple steps, 3 of them for braising and pot roasting is you choose that cut from this list back here. You prepare it, you're always adding some stuff, browning it. I'm going to show you quick on how to do that. You cook it, you just take your time. It's one of those, you leave it, go do something for a few hours, come back, and voila, you got a great meal. And then that stewing piece is you choose your cut. And sometimes you can cut up your own stew meat. You don't have to do it pre-cut, so you can get that chuck. And then you prepare it once again using oils and and a lot of liquid broth to go ahead and create that breakdown of that meat and that muscle. And some innovative recipes from the chuck from beefiswhatsfordinner.com. There's all right here. Slow cooker shredded beef, quesadillas for breakfast. This is super good, this fundito for upcoming bowl games and football weekends and tailgating. Oh, and those nachos are phenomenal as well, because I've made them and I've had them. Now, here was the chuck tough piece. The other end, just as tough, a little leaner, by USDA standards. And here are all of them: the eye round, the top round, that London, AKA London broil, everybody knows. But those top round roasts, they can be roasted slow and dry, but they can also be put into that slow cooker or braiser as well. So here are a lot of more cuts that you could utilize. Today, though, we are going to feature this sweet onion and pepper beef sandwich with au jus, and a Mexican beef stew over chipotle sweet potato mashers. This has got a kick to it, without a doubt. And as I mentioned, your resources, you can go to our website, nybeef.org, or beefiswhatsfordinner.com. You can go to the bottom of the page there. You can scroll and you see butcher's counter. Also on the top, one of the tabs are cuts. You can go in there, Google the chuck, and it'll show you tons of recipes that have been triple tested by our Beef It's What's for Dinner culinary team. So anybody have any questions while I run over to the kitchen? And let me stop the screen share here. And any quick questions before I jump over to the kitchen?
I don't see any in the chat. And Jean, while you're stepping away, I'm gonna put the links that we mentioned earlier into the chat. Okay.
All right, here I am.
Wow, that was fast.
I told you, I was like 3 fast steps into the Beef Council. So welcome to the New York Beef Council. We do have a kitchen. We do a lot of stuff here. Definitely on Mondays at 3 o'clock. Our man with the pan house, me, Ryan Gross, he's our social media guy. He actually helped me this morning and all day today because I was in Batavia for another thing, and he helped cook this. So what I did, as I mentioned, is I made that Mexican beef stew over chipotle sweet potato mashers. Woohoo! Here it is, as you can see. It was using beef stew meat, and I used this braiser back here, this nice cast iron. So it was super simple. I'm going to show you a little bit. I used the sweet potatoes. Actually, I kind of cheated a little bit. Got one of those containers with sweet potatoes in and did the extra mix in it. But this smells so good and does have a little bit of a kick because it uses those adobo and chipotle peppers. Whoa! And then I also made the sweet onion and pepper beef sandwich with some au jus. You can see it right here. Isn't that awesome? This would be great for tailgating, parties getting together. It's fall. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And again, lots of juice. The Beef Council is going to eat well tomorrow. So knowing this and getting a kick on this. So here's the stew meat. Now I got it already cut up, but you can go ahead. You can get that chuck roast and you can cut it up in different sizes. You can break down these pieces a little bit as well. Very important. So this will be a little bit higher price point when it's already done, or you can just go get that chuck. The other aspect is that we're going to flour it a little bit. I put some spices in here and some flour, and we're going to brown it right here in this pan. It's called the Maillard reaction, and it's going to create a sensation of a caramelization that adds a flavor boost. So I will take this and I'm going to put the meat. Woo! Meat be gone. Look at that. Everybody's escaping here. I'm going to put the meat here in the bag. Woo! I'm going to turn that down a little bit. And I'm going to shake it up a little bit. This will be fun with the kids to do. All right. And let me grab my trusty tongs. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have some olive oil. You put some butter. Butter is always good. And put it into the pan. You get that sizzle. I'm just going to put a couple pieces in there. And what you want to do is you want to brown it on all sides. If you're doing a big roast and you're slow cooking something, even if it's a big chuck roast and they don't get the stew, You want to try and brown all the sides of it. Now, one of the things that, you know, because it makes so much, this stew, I have put it in to-go containers, put a nice cover on it. I'll label it, put it right in the freezer, and it can be used at any time, brought out, thawed out, put in the microwave. And you have a really super quick meal, lickety split. So these recipes, the nutritional form that somebody's going to be overviewing, can be found on beefiswhat'sfordinner.com. And all you have to do is just kind of put it in and take a look. You can also check out that butcher's piece of it and look and see what other recipes or what other cuts that you can do. So as I mentioned, as this browning, and that it doesn't have to be cooked. It just has to be browned everywhere. And then you pop it right into the crock pot right here. And one of the cool things that I had is this as well, these slow cooker bags. Oh my God. I just pulled that out and it is clean. I can wrap it up, put it back into the box, and I don't have to be here forever scrubbing that. And even the cast iron was super, super easy to use as well. So any questions for me that anybody might have out there?
I do not see anything in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. So it looks like you must be explaining things pretty darn well.
Well, I hope so. And it's really, really easy. This is one of those things I know some people like to slow cook. What we did was we put that on today for about 7-8 hours. Ryan put it in about 11 o'clock this morning. I came back from Batavia and it was ready to go. That's the other thing that you have to remember when it comes with stews. It's not so much temperature that you're working with. It's called fork tender, and that's when you stick the meat into that roast itself and you pull it out, and it's like flaky, and it just kind of melts in your mouth in a sense. So when you're slow cooking and using moist heat, it's all about being fork tender versus a specific degree like you would do for ground beefs or steaks or what have you. Or if you put something in the oven and dry roasted it. A lot of that time, like your roast for Christmas, yeah, you want to hit that one at medium rare, 145 degrees internal temperature. But when it comes to stewing, pot roasting, braising, it's all about the fork. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you try these recipes. I know they are super popular. If you like a little kick, definitely the one with the chipotle. If you don't like a lot of kick, but you like kind of how it looks, just kind of cut back on that adobo. So, and I think you're good to go, everyone. And thanks so much, Bernie, for allowing me to participate and be part of the fun tonight.
Oh, our pleasure. And don't go anywhere because we're going to have you come back shortly. But this is a good spot. We're going to go ahead and transition. I still don't see anything in the chat, so that's a really good sign. At this point, I'm going to just go through my list. I'm going to do a little spotlighting here. Just bear with me.
Okay, so lemon sunshine curry. So this curry, I woke up one morning in the middle of quarantine and I just said, what is the happiest thing that I can make right now that all of my people are going to eat? Which means like my mom's gonna eat it, my best friend's gonna eat it, I'm gonna eat it, which means I'm like kind of balancing everybody's cravings. And it turned out, one of my friends is vegetarian, that this lemon sunshine curry kind of ticked the boxes for everyone. And then one of the ways that I found a lot of grounding and peace during quarantine was to cook for my family and friends. And so this is one of the recipes that I did. So in the pot right now, I have some avocado oil going. I like to use avocado oil because it's a neutral oil and it has a high smoke point, so I don't really have to worry about it smoking. You can totally use whatever oil you normally cook with. If you want to add a little bit more flavor, you can use coconut oil. The unrefined version is going to have more of a coconut taste. You can also use ghee, which is the clarified butter that you see a lot in South Asian cuisine. But I tend to have avocado oil hanging around because it's like my everyday oil. So in here I have some, oh, I got this, that's right. So I have shallots and garlic. And I'm gonna add the shallots first because garlic burns, as you all know, and it burns quickly. So the shallots, they get a little bit more time in the pan. Going here, and I like shallots because they're really sweet and they don't have that same sharpness that most onions have. But truly, if you are a yellow onion person, use yellow onions. Or if you love Vidalias, all that's game. One of the things about a curry is that it's a kind of recipe that you can remix with what you have around the house. So there's not a lot of musts in this recipe. Now, what's different is that I am not calling for curry powder in this recipe. If you have a look, you'll see that we're incorporating a few spices. And that's just because a curry is any dish that's made with a multitude of spices. And curry powder is a ready-made mix. So often it has the turmeric in it, which gives it that gorgeous yellow color. You get the cumin, which is very warming and very grounding. Not a lot of spice in that. And then also, I'm using coriander today. If you haven't stuck your nose in some coriander lately, give it a try. It's very citrusy. And in this lemon sunshine curry, we want all the citrus we can get. So my shallots are in here and they're softening. I am cooking this over medium-low. You can see right here. These softened up pretty quickly because I started to preheat my pan. And now I'm just going to add the rest of the garlic and let that go a few minutes. You can kind of play around with the heating a little bit. I'm going to put this up just a tiny bit. Tend to be a little impatient sometimes when I'm cooking things in this manner. And one of the things that I absolutely learned during quarantine when I didn't have anywhere to go was that these parts of the recipe where you're truly building in the flavor, it's the times to slow down. So just like with slow cooking, you know, you're using time to let all of the fibers in the meat break down. When you're cooking something like this, slowly sauteing all of the aromatics gets all of the oil out of them, and you'll start to really smell that fragrant garlic. So you can see everything's starting to get a little translucent here. I'm not going to go much longer because I don't want this to caramelize. I don't want any brown on my onions or garlic, and that's largely because I'm not looking for sweetness in this recipe. I'm looking for that savory depth of flavor. So this is going here, and then I'm going to add my spices. So I already pre-measured everything out. So I keep on forgetting I have this. So I have turmeric in here and the coriander and the cumin. So if this feels like a lot of turmeric to you, let me just remind you that this is a pretty big batch of curry, which means you're going to have a bunch to share and you can have a bunch to put up in the freezer. This amount of turmeric is going to give this recipe its really beautiful flavor. If you've cooked with turmeric before and you found it a little bitter, or you found it like a little astringent, like drying in the mouth, blooming your spices, and particularly brown spices like this, helps to mellow out some of that sharpness. And immediately I can smell it. It just smells so good. So I'm going to put up the heat a little bit more. And I'm going to cook this until I really feel the spices sort of settle in their smell and they don't have that bitterness. And then I'm going to crack over some black pepper. Now, there's some research that suggests that adding black pepper when you cook with turmeric increases the bioavailability of the anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric. I can't say that about this recipe, but I will tell you that when you do combine turmeric and black pepper together, you get a very specific flavor that is unique to a lot of South Asian curries. And by using it here, you will get that flavor from this dish.
Hey, Ollie, there was a message and Jean covered the answer already. Thank you, Jean. But just so you know, the question was, would you use cornstarch blended in water to thicken or not so much for stews? And Jean did answer, it works. Cornstarch works too.
Yeah, totally. So there are a bunch of different ways to thicken a stew. That cornstarch water mixture, that's called a slurry. And you add that in towards the end, whisking to thicken. We're actually using chickpeas today to thicken this stew. So you get a double punch of protein and really gorgeous velvety texture, which we're gonna get started on right now. So I have my chickpeas here. They were rinsed and drained, and now I'm just adding them in. So I like to add the chickpeas at this stage because it's important to me for them to get fully coated with those spices. So I'm gonna stir here. And you're starting to see how what might have seemed like an alarming amount of oil really isn't that much. So this is 2 29-ounce cans of chickpeas. So pretty substantial. Half of these chickpeas are going to end up sort of pureed into the velvety base along with the potatoes. And then the rest will lend some chunkiness. So this is when the recipe for me starts to get really exciting. So a couple years ago, which is sort of strange to say at this point, I preserved some lemons. And it's a really simple technique. It's you get lemons, you cut them a certain way, you pack them with salt, you stick them in a jar. If you want to, you can add a little bit more lemon juice to the mixture, and then you wait. Like anything good that you're preserving, you wait a little bit. And then when you're done, you get these spectacular preserved lemon specimens. This is what they look like. Let's see here. Let me try this again. Here we go. Sorry, don't tell my mom I didn't do my nails. So this is what they look like. They kind of take on a darker color. You're actually not going to eat the fruit in the inside. What you want is the rind. I got these at Honest Weight Co-op. I think, you know, in our region, that's the best bet if you're not going to make them yourself because you can buy them by weight. So I just picked up 2. This recipe only calls for 1, but I wanted you to see what it looks like. And again, they're aromatic. They're almost like perfume. They're so gorgeous. The smell is unlike anything. It's like you get all of the oil and the essence of lemon without any of the acidity because it's been packed in salt. So I peeled a lemon and then I diced up the rind. So it looks like this. And I'm actually going to add that to this step in the recipe because again, we want everything to build in flavor here. Now, I have made this curry a couple of times, and every time I make it, I remix it a little bit, not too much, but I know if I'm making a recipe the same way over and over again, that it's a good one. Because normally I like to kind of tinker with things. So this is fully coated here. Smells pretty amazing.
Ollie, there's another great question in the chat.
What's up?
Question is, if I preserved my own lemons, how long before they are ready to use?
I think I ended up, you'll have to check the resource because I honestly don't remember, but it was a bit of a wait. I think I had to wait about 3 months for them to get to the consistency and the rind that I was looking for. I think a lot of that does depend on the thickness of the rind of the lemon that you're using and also how you pack it with salt. There are a few different techniques, some of which where you're just kind of making slices in the lemon and packing the salt in. Some where you remove the lemon fruit flesh and then coat just the rinds in salt. So it's going to depend, but at the very least, it's around 2 to 3 months. So get them in now, make a volume of them, and then have them forever. I think they also make like amazing holiday gifts. It's again, it's like the sunshine in this moment of happy, bright flavors, especially in the dead of winter. And now with our darker days in front of us, with the time change, that feels really important. So this is sizzling and smelling pretty spectacular here. If you just wanted like sauteed chickpeas, you could just stop right here. I added a little bit of salt here, but one thing to really keep in mind is that the preserved lemons are salty. And so I rinse them. I would rinse this, and then I would start removing the fruit in the inside and chopping up the peel. You're gonna wanna taste your stew to figure out if you wanna add a little bit more salt because every lemon is a little bit different. This is definitely one of those seasoned to taste recipes. And since there's nothing in here you have to worry about, you know, being unsafe to eat, you can kind of taste as you go. So again, like you can stop here if you just want like delicious spiced sauteed beans. When I was growing up, my mom would make this version right here, and then she would just toss in just an armful of spinach, just like a boatload of spinach. And that was like one of my favorite things to eat growing up. It's like my comfort food. I still make it a lot. So this is smelling pretty amazing.
Ollie, there's another great question in the chat.
What's that?
Can you use fresh squash in place of chickpeas?
Like cube squash?
I would assume any type of squash, any form.
So if I was to add squash to this, I would use it in place of the potatoes, which I am going to add shortly here. So the potatoes, and I'm using red potatoes because they cook fairly quickly, and because I'm looking again for help creating this velvety base that we're going to get out of this stew. If I was to use squash, because they take a little bit longer to cook, I would add them in and just not try to puree the soup. I would leave it more in like this chunky stew and probably go, you know, an extra 15 to 20 minutes. And very much like, you know, the beef roast, you're looking for fork tender on that squash. So you're just sticking a fork in, it should go in smooth and easy, it should feel soft. But yeah, absolutely. And you know, I thought about that too, because I had some sweet potatoes around and butternut squash. You can chop it up and totally add it in here. It would be such a beautiful color, and it would bring this a little bit more into the sweet side. Okay, so that's there. Next up, I'm adding coconut milk. So I have 2 cans of coconut milk here. I use the full fat. So when we talk about nutritional value of this recipe, I am 100% team fat. I love plant fats, particularly because fats add flavor, and that's what we're going for here. We want this to taste good. But I love coconut-based fats because they are high in medium chain triglycerides, and medium chain triglycerides are the type of fat that are responsible for giving you a big punch of energy. They're great for your brain, they're great for cognition, and I have found in the past when I've done more of like a low-carb keto diet, that if I eat foods high in MCT, those medium chain triglycerides, the satiety of the meal that I'm having is way higher. So again, that would mean cooking with a little bit of coconut oil, cooking with coconut milk in this manner. You don't have to be excessive about it, right? It's pretty impactful when you're having a regular serving of it. So we've got the coconut milk in here, the full fat, and you can start to see why we call this sunshine curry, because that yellow is pretty happy making for me. So any of the like granularity that you're seeing in this like little bit of flecks of white, that's simply just still some of the coconut fat that needs to melt. I'm also going to add 2 cups of water. This is a big stew, my friends, but also it will thicken up once I add the potatoes. Get everything mixed in, get those sides. And then I just had a pound of potatoes, not a ton. I left the skin on, just cleaned them up, adding that in here. It's pretty beautiful. So you could, you know, not puree this after all this cooks, but I like this a little bit more velvety. So now I'm gonna bring this up to a boil and cook it for a couple of minutes. And I'm wondering if this is a good time to just pass it over to Mary Lee for a little bit while this cooks, and then maybe I can jump back in and show you what it looks like when it's all done.
That sounds good, Ollie. I'm just going to change your settings a little bit and change Mary Lee.
Let's see.
And welcome, Mary Lee. I know that there's also a question in the chat about the recipes. Yes, there will be a PDF available after this training. It will probably be sent to you in the following days, so you will have access to all of these recipes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here too. Jean, I loved your recipes. I'm excited to get those started myself at home. I've got a freezer full of great cuts from some area farms, which I was able to find through our Cornell Cooperative Extension website. It's a fabulous website. It's called Harvest Connection. Great place to find things like I was asking on the web about local squashes like this Blue Hubbard squash and this Rouge Bif de Temp. And these new that I grew myself this year, Long Island cheese pumpkins, they're called. But you can get a lot of food out of some of these squash. They kind of taste like butternut squash, a little less dense as butternut squash. But the best way to go about finding a place for our local area, to find the farms in the Capital District, is through our website, and it's called Harvest Connection. And the website, the way to find it is spelling out harvestconnection-ny.com. And it's a way to explore the local farms, the farmers markets, the CSAs, and farm stands based on your location. So it's a fabulous way right at your fingertips to find Christmas trees and local produce, berries, nursery products, a whole list of wonderful things. So please look it up. It's very easy. Put your zip code in and put the foods you're looking for, or they'll give you a list. And you can also learn about our local farms by clicking on the farm. There's there's stories, and you meet some of the farmers. So it's a fabulous way to get to know the Capital District. They have honey, maple syrup, herbs, fruits and vegetables, as well as plants, trees, shrubs, flowers. So I highly recommend you check this out. It'll be on our resource listing at the end. So I wanted to tell you that. The next thing, if you would like to, would you like me right now, Bernie, to go on to the freezing, or do you want to do Felicia's nutrition?
This might be a good time to cut to Felicia. Felicia is a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension. Ollie, I just want to check in with you to make sure that there's about 2.5 minutes of video with Felicia. Is that still good timing with what you've got cooking?
Yeah.
All right, great. Then we'll go ahead and shift gears and go in that direction. Ollie, there's also a nice comment. Karen likes your pink Dutch oven.
I know. Thank you. It's like everything needs to be happy, including the pink Dutch oven.
I totally love that as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to shift gears and hope that I can get this video up for everybody without too much pain here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felicia Chandler. I'm a nutrition program educator for Rensselaer County Cornell Cooperative Extension. I'm sure everybody had viewed the 3 recipes that we demoed. They are hearty, they are delicious, and they are healthy. So let's talk about 3 important nutrients of these recipes. First nutrient I will talk about is potassium. Potassium is good for blood flow. Potassium is good for the leg cramps. Actually, potassium are found in the following foods that are in the recipe. The first food is potassium found in is potatoes. Potatoes are real good to you, especially the skin. Also, potassium is found in tomatoes. Potassium is also found in sweet potatoes. Potassium also found in chickpeas. The next nutrient that I'm going to talk about is protein. Protein is good for regulating our muscles, and also protein is good for the immune system. Protein also keeps you fuller longer. So foods that protein found in, first of all, the beef, the chickpeas, the potatoes, and a little bit in the tomatoes. So with these recipes, there's one bonus of one of the recipes, the lemon sunshine curry. The awesome bonus about that have potassium and protein in it because of the chickpeas. Chickpeas are great, they're nutritional, and plus they're plant-based. So one other thing about the recipes, with the recipes, dietary fiber is one of the keys of all of the recipes. So dietary fiber keeps you fuller longer, fiber helps your digestive system, and fiber also lowers your LDL. Every recipe that is listed is at least roughly 1 cup per serving. Should you have any other questions about these recipes and nutrients I have discussed, please feel free to reach out to me at fc54@cornell.edu. Thank you for your time, and please enjoy.
Okay, so hopefully everybody got a fairly good view of Felicia and we're able to hear okay. So let's go ahead. And next on the docket, Ollie, how's your recipe coming along?
Got some bubbling.
Okay.
Yeah, so but whenever you're ready, I can hop back in.
Okay, I think we could go ahead and Mary Lee, you already talked about Harvest Connection, right?
Yes, I did.
So I think we could hop back up to Ollie or Mary Lee. Do you want to talk a little bit, some generalities about maybe freezing some of these recipes and other preservation tips?
Sure, I can do that. I'd be happy to do that.
Great.
Yes. Okay, well, the first thing about freezing foods is the most important thing is that you freeze it quickly. And people had asked, well, what kind of stews, how can you freeze these stews? Well, it's easier with stews and with freezing in general, sometimes things that don't freeze well may be the easier things. There are so many recipes out there. So some of the things that do not freeze well would be like eggs. We all know does not freeze well. Cabbage doesn't freeze so well, it's limpy. And actually potatoes don't freeze so well, they get mushy. Sour cream, milk sauces, even cooked macaroni. So if you're making a stew, hold the macaroni out and put it in, boil it separately, put it in and mix that in. So when you're checking your recipes, the best place to find out all of the foods that do not freeze so well would be to check the source on the National Center for Home Food Preservation, which will be in our list of resources at the end. That is absolutely the best source for learning about home food preservation, and there's a section on freezing. Another great source is So Easy to Preserve. It's put out by the University of Georgia, another extension, land-grant university, cooperative extension, the University of Georgia. And there's a section in there on how to freeze stews or other prepared foods. And some of the ways, the way they recommend would be to make your recipe just as usual, start it that way, keep the fat to a minimum, omit potatoes from the stew, the stew itself, put that out and add it later, and lightly undercook the stew vegetables because you are going to be heating it again and it will be overcooking. So when you know you might make a big batch and before it's completely cooked, take a section aside, divide it in half, say, and put it aside and then freeze that before you add your potatoes or your macaroni and before you completely cook your vegetables. And then to freeze it, you cool the dishes absolutely quickly, as fast as you can, put it right in the refrigerator, cool it over a bowl of ice, and you can use foil freezer wrap or plastic bags to freeze. And be sure the meat is covered with a sauce or a broth. The meat needs to be covered. You'll get freezer burn. We know what frost and freezer burn is on meat that is not protected with liquid. So the broth or the sauce. And then leave a little headspace. It will expand a little bit. And one way to do it is, I do it one way, but another way to do it is you can take a casserole dish. You have to bend down, pull the drawer out and pull the dish out, but take a casserole dish, line it with aluminum foil, put your stew in it, and you're really using the casserole dish as a form. So you're going to wrap it all up, because you've lined the casserole dish with aluminum foil. Put the stew in, wrap it like you normally would, very tightly. Take that container, put it in the freezer, make sure it's a freezer-proof container, then take it out. Take the frozen stew out of the dish because you're using it as a form, and then put it back in the freezer. And make sure you date your food. Identify it and date your food. Rotate your food up through the freezer. You should be freezing at 0 degrees, and most stews can be frozen 4 to 6 months. Now, the second part of this that's very important to know is for serving. And it's very important that you thaw it properly, or you cook it properly after the freezing. So often we figure, how do we freeze things? But then the important part is thawing in the refrigerator, and reheat the solids to at least 165 degrees or higher, the solids. And meanwhile, the liquids should go to a solid boil, a rolling boil. And then you know you've done that properly. Do not leave it on the counter to thaw. It will have different temperatures on the outside and the inside. So do not do that. So I'm going to give you a little test. I'm going to hold up some food, and you can set in the web, you can put in the chat. Yeah, good idea for freezing or not. Excuse me. Okay, you ready? What do you say? Any votes? Good for freezing in your stews, right? Look at it, it's already dried up, ready to go. What do you say? Good for freezing or no? Any comments in there?
No.
We've got no, predominantly no so far.
Oh, good job, everybody. Good job. What about onions? Not so bad? What do you think? Onions okay for freezing? Chop them up, put them in your soups, your stews. All right, not on that list. They're okay. Thank you. Good job.
Getting some yeses. Yep.
All right, how about this? Good for freezing, right? Just chop it up, stick it in a bag. Sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, good job, Marge. I see you said no. You too, Jen. You're right. Absolutely. It's not really good. It doesn't hold its form or shape, doesn't keep its texture, it doesn't work so well. And of course, we love potatoes. So that should work, right? Anybody? Okay, 2 points for Jen. Absolutely not. Right. Not a good idea. They mash, they mush, they lose their shape. The last thing I want you to know is ways to freeze. Now, there's a couple of ways to go about it. I use plastic bags a lot. They're simple, they're easy. I put them in a bag. But one of the ways that I've often done it is stick it in a bag, stick it in the freezer. Nice shape, right? That's okay. Stick them in a bag, in a shopping bag, and you can have it if you have a chest freezer. Drop all of your fruits in one section and your meats in another. But another way that I've been doing more so lately is letting it find its own level. I cut the food up, and stews can be this way, and I put it in a plastic bag, and I lay it flat. Now, this is not a good example of how flat it could be. Usually it's flat. And then you can actually, after you freeze it, take it out. You've got your label, and you can store it like you would old-time files in a file cabinet like that, or stack them. And it's a great way to use the space in your freezer. So I'm also going to ask Jean, somewhere on the side, how to use a beef brisket someday. That's what I'm looking forward to finding out. The best way to do it. I'm going to review this this video myself on YouTube later on, and I'm going to see the best way to cook that. So that's what I have. Just hope that you enjoyed these webinars, and I hope that we get it. I wish we could do the tasting. I would try to taste the flavors of Jean's food and Ollie's food. It would be fabulous. But nonetheless, at least we can do this. So
thank you so much, Mary Lee. I got to say, there's been a comment by Mary. She has a vacuum sealer, and she has never had any freezer burn. So just making that comment. Thanks for sharing, Mary. I'm going to jump back to Jean. Jean has a few sources for us. Is that okay, Ollie? And then we're going to come back to you after Jean. Terrific.
There we go. Need to unmute myself. Sorry about that. So I am ready to share. Hopefully you can see. This is our website. It's nybeef.org, and you can see right here on this page, looking for local beef. Click that, finding farms, and look at their New York State map, and it breaks it down to Western New York, Southern Tier, North Country, New York City, Mohawk, Long Island. All those are right there. All you have to do is you can click on one of those dots right there or right here, and it'll tell you exactly who, what, where is there. Another place is meatsweet.com. And then what I wanted to quickly show you is this is Beef It's What's for Dinner. So as I mentioned, Beef It's What's for Dinner is an awesome website. Everything is triple tested as far as recipes. You can go into that cut section right there. And with that cut section, you can explore cuts that can marinate or lean, trending beef cuts. And then if you go down a little bit further, there's that stew meat that we were talking about. You can go onto that right there. Let's go. And it shows where that cut comes from, what you can do with it. And here's lots and lots of recipes that we just went over as well, from chilies to stews to here's an autumn and beef cider. Another thing you can do is go into this and Mary Lee, I'm going to put in brisket.
Thank you.
And it's going to take you to all of these brisket recipes. I can go into that cut section. Let me go back here a second. Let's go back to cuts. And I can put in brisket. And there it is. Look at that. There's two types. There's the flat half, which is lean by USDA standards. And then there's the point. So I'm going to go into this right here. It's going to show where that cut comes from. All the cooking methods, smoking. Oh yeah. If we were in Texas, this is what they do all day long. Here's some overall nutrition. And then again, recipes that you can use with this cut. This sandwich is phenomenal, all of it. It's not just corned beef and cabbage, folks. Chilies, breakfast, appetizers, French dips, soups. All of it is right here. This corned beef and pickle dip, awesome for the St. Patty's Day. But you can see that classic beef brisket. If you go to our website and let's say you don't have a smoker at home, or if you go to our Facebook page, show you how to go ahead and smoke in your own kitchen. You don't need a smoker. It'll be super easy. And we've hired some bloggers to show us how to do it as well. So it's all super, super cool. But this is the place to go. Everything you want to know about beef is beefitswhatsfordinner.com. And then you can always go to nybeef.org right here. And it will take you to looking for local recipes, cooking, nutrition, whatever you need here in New York. We're here for you.
Jean, you have a tough job trying those recipes out. I can see the enthusiasm is right aligned with that. That's fantastic.
After 16 years, I've hit a lot of those recipes. I know a lot of them by heart for the most part. I've demoed them or cooked them, and I have to say I've never been disappointed at all. You guys mentioned they're triple tested. I've seen the culinary at Beef It's What's for Dinner in Denver, and it is an amazing place. Every stove you can think of the consumer may have, and they do a really, really good job of making sure that everything can be cooked anywhere, anyhow, and it's all delicious.
And our nutritionist, Felicia, who we just all met, would be so pleased to see all that nutritional information on there. So helpful. The calories. Thank you so much.
Yep. And some more information on how beef is raised if you have concerns about it, and the nutrition piece of it overall, and how it can be part of a heart healthy diet. Even on our website, we've got spice mixes that have no salt. So if you're watching your salt intake, just go to ours, hit the recipe tab, and you'll be able to see 5 different recipes that we've created.
I would add, there's a nice comment in the chat from Elizabeth, and she's providing a link to some great brisket recipes as well there. And did you mention this already, Jean, that all of the recipes that are on your websites that you shared have been USDA analyzed? So the nutritional content is very standardized.
Right, anything on our website or Beef It's What's for Dinner, everything has USDA approval. We cannot post anything on any social media platform without USDA oversight. We cannot make any nutritional claims without USDA oversight. So everything that you see here has had USDA touch it, look at it, and review it. So what you see is tried and true oversight by USDA.
Thank you. Ollie, how's it going over there? I think I'm starting to, I'm hallucinating, I think. I think I can smell good cooking over here.
So Ollie, yeah, I was just gonna go, if you wanna go ahead and chat a little bit of where you're at with your preps.
Yeah, so we want to pin these so people can see them. So we haven't quite gone the full 20 minutes that this would need for the potatoes to get softened, but you can see here, there's some steam. Hold on, I got you. Give me 1 second. It'll calm down. So you can see how we have this like creamy yellow color. You can see that it's starting to get this foam around the end, around the edges, and that just means that a little bit of evaporation has happened and that the flavors are starting to concentrate. So I have an addendum to the potato note about freezing. So since this recipe is intended to have soft and silky mushy potatoes, this one actually is one of those exceptions to the rule. But a lot of, like any rule, there are exceptions, but you have to kind of know what you are looking for. So if you were looking for a rich and creamy mashed potato and you were putting them in the freezer, that's both potato and fat in the freezer, which are like two big no's. But because this is bolstered by so much protein in the chickpeas, and because we're going to puree some of this and it has a substantial amount of fat and water emulsified, this actually reheats like a dream once you freeze it. Not every potato recipe is going to do that. Not every recipe with fat is going to do that. But there are other components in here that lead to that success. So this one is 100% designed for you to put into the freezer. So the potatoes are not quite done, but you can see how everything else has started to soften. But the beauty of this is as it cooks, the potatoes are infused with this like gorgeous turmeric coconut flavor with all the spices in there. And I wanted to show you up until this point, but I did make this curry ahead of time. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's done. So let me just grab this pot really quick off of here, switch it over. Okay, so I'm gonna stick this on here. So when this curry is, sorry, it's so tasty, cooled and set, the starch from the potatoes, the fat from the coconut milk, the pureed protein from the chickpeas leaves you with a very scoopable base. So this is a recipe where I've already done some of the pureeing of the potatoes. I'm not going to show you that right now just because the potatoes are not all the way done. But this is a really easy recipe for you to freeze in half-quart plastic containers. And it is good in the freezer for up to 6 months. Like Mary Lee said, just label it. And when you reheat it, it's going to go a little something like this. So I scoop out, so this was defrosted in the fridge. And then I scooped out a little bit, put it in a pan. And because freezing also, it dries out food. I am sure you all know, like when you stick something in the fridge and you're reheating it again, it's a little bit drier. Same thing goes with the freezer. So whenever you're reheating food, especially like a stew or a soup that had a decent amount of water when it was ready to eat, you have to add a little bit of that water back and then reheat it. So I am also going to add a little bit of water here, just a little bit. I want the consistency to remain stew-like. But again, this is a recipe that you can truly make your own. If you want pure, like creamy, no texture in your soup, just blitz this the whole way. So this is what it looks like when it's done. So some of the steps that we didn't get a chance to go through together here are adding the lemon juice in the end. I use about 2 lemons and the juice from 2 lemons and the zest from 1 lemon. The lemon juice is the only acidity that we're adding to this recipe. And for the volume that we make, 2 ounces is really not that much. It's just enough to add balance, just enough to smooth out any of the richness, just enough to make the spices pop. And the lemon zest, much like the preserved lemon, add more pure lemon flavor. So you're getting more of that lemon oil in here. This is very much the happiest curry I know how to make. So there you go. This is thinned out a little bit. You can see how it's got the satiny texture and some chunks. So if I am serving this after it's been frozen, I will probably add a little bit of lemon wedge on the side to perk it up again. And sometimes I would just like chop up some cilantro to serve on top as well. This I like to eat over brown rice. I've been really into brown jasmine rice lately. It's very fragrant and nutty, and it just complements the coconut flavor because the coconut flavor is present in here. Or you could serve it with a slaw. This is such a good time for these kind of cozy flavors, these kind of like homey, hug you back soups and stews. This one is one of my favorite. All my people love it, and I hope if you give it a try, you could let us know, because it's one that I think is going to be around and a favorite if it works for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you so much. So I'm going to put in the chat the link for our future website where you can go for the links for information on these items. And I'm just going to push enter here so you'll see it in the chat box. The only other thing I think is, Mary Lee, do you want to see if anybody has any questions in the chat? I'm multitasking right now.
Oh, sure.
Trying to find where I need to be.
Sure. I think we did mention Mary saying she had a vacuum sealer and there was no freezer burn ever. And that is fantastic. I did mean to mention that when you're making the stews also to kind of go down on, reduce it so it's a little more concentrated, and that helps with crystallizing. So keep that in mind. And then Elizabeth mentions here's a great uncorned beef brisket recipe. I think we did go through that. I'm sorry, I missed that. And you gave the recipe for the resources. I did have a recipe I wanted to give for the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and I was just about typing it in. I can put that in a minute. It's just NCHFP, National Center for Home Food Preservation.uga.edu. And someone asked a question about dates for future Zooms. Great question. As a matter of fact, next week, this season has been, our Back to Home Basics for the second year has been seasonal stews, soups, and sweets. So this week was stews. Next week will be soups, and we'll have Judy Bodner, a soup chef from a local French restaurant. She was a guest chef this last summer, and she's going to share some of her favorite recipes, leek soup made with fresh chicken broth. And also we are going to have chicken recipes with the St. Croix farm, I believe. And then the following week, the last week, will be the sweets, and that'll be a holiday one with Carmen of Carmen's Cafe down in Troy. And she will be doing pudding flan, phenomenal recipe that she loves giving away. And then the Master Food Preservers are putting together some sweets with some dried fruits. So that'll be a nice surprise. So we've got some great stuff ahead. I personally would like to thank Ollie and Jean so much for their enthusiasm and their dedication to their food, for creating wonderful, nutritious food and sharing their passion and their energy and their wisdom and their ideas with all of us. I appreciate Cornell Cooperative Extension for being that platform for all of us in the county and far all over the country. And Bernie for being our executive director and making all this come together. And with our county legislators, we had a wonderful meeting last night and thanked them because they support cooperative extension great and it's such a great big way. Thank you. Hope everybody enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mary Lee. So just a really quick recap. So November 17th will be soups and December 1st will be sweets. So that's great. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I see some kudos from Linda. Thank you very much. And I would just echo everything Mary Lee said about Jean and Ollie for being here tonight. And of course, Mary Lee being the glue to kind of keep things moving forward. So with that, I'm getting a signal from Mary Lee.
The participants are everything.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so fun to have everybody here together and we get side chats going and the great questions and the engagement. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming together.
Yes, thank you so much for supporting our Zoom tonight. Hope to see you next week. All right, and with that, I'll go ahead and you guys can go ahead and sound off whenever you would like. And again, we'll be emailing that link to resources from tonight. Please don't be expecting it tomorrow, but we should have it out by Friday. All right, thanks everybody, good night. And again, thank you, Ollie, Jean, Mary Lee, and all our awesome participants. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Nancy did ask a question. Do we need to re-sign up for future webs? Yes, there will be a different separate link for each of the sessions. So we will be actually sending that information out to the email that you registered for this one. So you will have the opportunity to get that directly to your email box. Okay, great. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.